Welcome to the Trout Conjurer YouTube channel. My name is Jonathan Antunes. Today we're going to be tying the Cutcliffe Caddis Pupa. And this is a pattern that was inspired by Cutcliffe's flies. And I've used it a lot here in Colorado waters and I found them extremely effective. So I'm going to be sharing that with you today. The hook that I'm using is an Ahrex FW 531. It's a nice shaped hook. It's a Sedge dry Barbless. It has a nice shape to it. And I particularly like for any kind of pupa pattern. The thread that we're going to be using is Magpie Materials 110 denier in a yellow. And I like the 110 for the bigger hooks, particular like creating a body and stuff. It's a little bit of a thicker thread. So I've just lightly waxed, and I'm going to start about 2 eye lengths back from the throat of the hook. Just put a couple turns in there. And for ribbing, you can use a couple of things. You can use a yellow silk. You can even use like a gold oval tinsel. Maybe something like the Uni-French tinsel in medium for the bigger flies, and maybe the small for the like size 16s. The stuff that I found is this old Belding Corticelli style G, and it comes in these little spools. And this is a very bright yellow, and it's called a Nymo-UVR, which is a UV resistant nylon. And I found this in an antique store, and I bought so much of it. I mean, it was just a giant, it was like a mason jar filled with these. And I was like, you know what? It wasn't that expensive. Might as well give it a shot. And I'm glad I did. It's an interesting material. You can use like a silk floss, or maybe silk like buttonhole silk, something substantial. So I'm just going to tie this in, and I'm going to work my thread back and letting the thread tension kind of take it to the back of the hook. Right? And I'm just going to come back up, and I'm slowly building a body here and kind of adding color to the bottom here. Come back up to the starting point and then come back down. And I'm just adding color underneath. So when I do dubbing, I usually flip this over. That way I can get it close to the starting point without worrying about the hook point. So for dubbing, you can do a number of things, right? If you want that yellow to show through a lot, then use Antron. Antron is a good dubbing for that application because it's very translucent, and it does an extremely good job of showing color underneath it. For this particular pattern, you can use Hares mask. If you're dealing with a caddis that maybe is a little bit darker, the Hares mask is going to kind of get into like the dark tan shade. And then, or you could use a Dazl-Hare's ear. This is an old pack that I found, and I absolutely love this stuff because it's mixed. It has a little bit of like some Antron, some flash, and some hair mixed in. And this stuff is cool because once it gets wet, it becomes a little bit more translucent than Hares mask does. but it still has all of the fuzzies and some of the guard hairs that you kind of want, because I like to pick this stuff out. So I dress this thing somewhat heavy. I put a lot of material in, so that way I can pick it out and kind of trim it as I want. So we're going to do this Dazl-Hare's ear. We're just going to start dubbing this into a tapered body. And that's good enough for me. And clip the rest off. Pull it off, however it works for you. And there we have a nice little tapered body. So this, now we come in with this floss, and I recommend that if you're going to use a silk, that you wax it. You can wax this stuff too. I like to give it a clockwise twist before I start turning, so that way it shows up a little bit better. It's not as flat. It doesn't flatten out. This stuff is a lot like floss. It's nylon, but it's a floss color. It's a floss floss consistency. Has several strands in it. So I just work my way up, just kind of evenly spacing these and just adding color to the body. And I twist every single time I bring it around. So I'm twist and then bring it around. However many will fit on the body, right? In even spaces. I'm not someone that's going to tell you it has to be 5. I think that convention is nice, but I prefer my flies to be very segmented. I don't think trout can count those things. I don't think they're really that worried about it. So you'll notice what I did here is that I actually moved this forward. I tied this in forward, and then I pushed this back, and I basically pinched those two together. So now I have 2 layers, and it just helps keep that from pulling out, right? So the next step here is to just kind of tease these hairs out, and I have a little Stanfo tool here that has some Velcro, but a little piece of Velcro with, a little piece of Velcro would do fine. And this is why I tell you to wax the silk, because if you're pulling on this Velcro is going to grab that silk too, and it's going to pull it, and you're probably not going to like the result. So what I've done is I've kind of created a fuzzy body here. Once this thing gets wet, this fuzzy body will kind of become like a halo, and you kind of want that because you want like a jelly looking kind of a fly. That's what the naturals look like. They look, translucent. All right, so the next step here is picking hackle, right? Hackle is a very, very important aspect to this fly. I have particular reasons why I choose the feathers that I do. I like the feathers along the edge of the neck, right here, right? And I like a medium blue dun. This is actually a dyed skin, right? So it's fine. It's interesting that sometimes I find that the dyed skins are a little bit shinier. They're a little bit glossier than like a regular, like natural blue dun. And I like glossy feathers. I like glossy feathers because they have a lot of flash, and they have a lot of appeal when you're bringing them to the water. So I'm picking a feather here that is going to be longer, that the barbs are going to be longer than the body of the fly. Right? So when I hold that up to there, I can kind of gauge where that's going to be. And I like the length of this one, so I'm going to pick this one. Just going to quickly pick out a feather here. Got the distance, the length that I want it to be, and then cut. And we're going to be tying this in tip first, and it's going to be folded. I don't like to fold my feathers before I tie them in. I like to have, step by step, kind of in order, type thing. I know a lot of people that will use the vise to kind of fold these. I don't like doing that because I can never remember to do it. That's just me. But I like to tie them this way. So I'm going to show you how to do this in a way that doesn't, that your tying won't be affected. So I've kind of waxed this thread, right? And I'm spinning this up. This is tying wax. This is not a dubbing wax. Just, I know that's, I have to say that because I'm not sure how many people actually use tying wax or know what it is. Nowadays, it's kind of, not a thing that's used, but it should be used. So here's my little tying triangle, right? And I've made this about the same length as the distance from the eye to where I'm going to start wrapping, right? So now what I've done is I'm spinning this counterclockwise, my bobbin holder. And now what happens with that is that it bounces backwards. That thread bounces backwards. And it allows me to tie very close to the head without having, drama there. And it happens very cleanly. So I kind of move this up. And now we're going to put in the thorax, right? And the thorax material is this Secret Squirrel. Secret Squirrel is kind of a nice dubbing material. It's very light, but it has a dark color to it. It dubs. You can either dub it very thickly or you can dub it very fine. It dubs extremely well, and it has a lot of character to it, and that's kind of what I like. I like material that has a lot of different dimensions to it. I think that it adds a lot to the fly's appeal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just put a small little noodle here, and I'm going to basically work this behind, and just work this behind the feather, right? And then kind of grab this feather here, and now bring it forward. And that's just to extend the thorax a little bit. So that the legs kind of start within the thorax area. So now we're ready to fold the feather. Now, the thread base that I put on here is waxed. The thread that I put on top of it is waxed. So now what's holding this thread, this feather tip, is two waxed layers. So this is not going to pull out. It'll probably break before it pulls out. So that's kind of why I do this, because this folding that I'm doing here on the hook, it's a little bit of pressure, and I kind of make a U shape here, right? And I'm just kind of teasing these fibers back. And sometimes this works well. Sometimes the feather is cooperative. Sometimes it does not work well. Sometimes it just wants to go whatever direction it wants to go in. And don't worry about it too much. We're going to manipulate these as we turn. So I'm going to grab this feather and kind of pull back and make my first wrap. So that way everything is oriented in the right direction. And the first wrap is going to go directly into a palmer. Right? We're not going to do a full wrap on the back. We want this to be as lightly hackled as possible. So here's another wrap. We're palmering this up the thorax. Right? Here's the third wrap. And then we're going to end this right at the very top, or the very halfway point of the fourth wrap. I'm going to twist my tying thread, and then I'm going to work this kind of like you would a wire through palmered hackle. I'm just kind of moving this back and forth as I go through. That way I don't catch too many fibers underneath. So I do two on the back, and then 2 on the front, right? And now I just come in with my scissors and I clip this close. Grab any stray fibers and just start building a small head here. Not too much. Next step is to grab a marker. If you want to do this, it's fine. You don't have to do it, but I like to kind of make the heads darker on this. Because most caddis pupa have a darker head anyways. This is my favorite color to use, is the honey brown from Bic. It's a permanent marker. I like this color. I bought it for another pattern. You probably already know what that is. But this is a nice kind of a reddish brown color on most threads. So now that I've got kind of a head, the head is about the same size as the eye of the hook, right? I come in with my whip finish. Another 3-turn whip finish. And now something I don't see a lot of people doing nowadays is seating their thread. Right? Just kind of move it back and forth until it really tightens up. I've seen people do this where they don't tighten it up, and then when they cut it, it just kind of springs out. It's super macro shots, they hide nothing. So. And we're going to finish this with just a little bit of UV. You can put whatever glue you want. I like this stuff because it's quick. If I'm tying some for the stream, I like to just be finished with it. And about 10 seconds later, you're ready for the last step, right? The step is somewhat optional. You can test this fly with, just as it is now, or you can do what Cutcliffe used to do, which he used to curl these hackles. Right. There's just a little bit of pressure right at the tips. And if I had to theorize why he did this, I would have to probably say that this was during the age of a rooster, a breed of roosters that was used for rooster fighting, right? So the feathers were very stiff, the hackles were very stiff, not like the ones we have today. I would say they're probably in a world of their own. And because they were so stiff, he wanted to change the structure of the tips and kind of flatten them out. That way the tips had a little bit more motion than the core. So as this thing would move through the water, dance in the water, dance on the surface, it was kind of having the tips were kind of doing their own kind of moving thing. And this is my theory as to why he does this. He doesn't really mention why he doesn't. So your guess is as good as mine. We can't ask the man, unfortunately. But this is kind of the style of his flies, and I think it kind of looks cool. I've tried both, and both seem to work extremely well. So I don't know if I can tell you one way or the other if it's a benefit. But in my opinion, you do whatever you like. So this is basically the end of the fly, and the end of the tying portion of the fly. Thanks for joining me. Please, come again. I'm going to be posting quite a few videos, and really would appreciate your support. The next fly that I want to tie is going to be a dry version. This is particularly a wet fly, and I'll make a companion video to this, basically talking about how I fish this and some of the theories behind it. And I hope that you will catch that one as well. I'll be posting it shortly after this one. Come again, and appreciate your viewership.